Fear and resentment rule the addicted mind. Fear of the return of what was, and resentment over what is, with no hope for what could be. In fact, it is this duo that restricts us from any hope in a better future. We see ourselves, fundamentally, as broken. What is the feeling of being broken? Romantic rejection, being laid off, the common experience of growing up far too early. All of these run the risk of giving someone the feeling that they have been broken, that their lives are irredeemable, and that a future of any kind is no longer worth living for. A tremendous shame persists throughout the day, numbed only by our pacifier of choice. Alcohol, sex, overworking. They all act to temporarily relieve us of ever having to live as ourselves. We use the external to escape from the unbearable internal. The addiction expert, Dr. Gabor Mate, describes his own struggles with defectiveness. Along with my positive qualities, intellectual confidence, strengths, passions, and commitments, there has always lurked near the very core of me a churning, inchoate anxiety. My anxiety clothes itself in concerns about body image or financial security, doubts regarding lovability or the ability to love, self-disparagement, and existential pessimism about life's meaning and purpose. Or, on the other hand, it manifests itself as grandiosity, the need to be admired, to be seen as special. At bottom, it is nameless and formless. I feel sure it was forged in my chest cavity somewhere between my lungs and heart long before I knew the name of things. This anxiety, this emptiness within, never leaves because we are never entirely aware of it. We think if we get this job, this partner, or achieve some other sort of goal, it will go away. But the truth is that this sort of anxiety, the fear that we are fundamentally broken, will not simply go away with a few life changes. It is based upon the stories we have told ourselves, perhaps before we were even able to talk. These stories helped us at the time. If we work hard, we will be enough. If we gain affection or understanding through others, we will be enough. Perhaps these stories are even true, but to truly look into them first, with non-judgmental awareness, is far too disturbing. It requires us to enter that dark pit of hell and leave behind all of those things we use to escape. Do we settle for a familiar sadness or risk discomfort for a better life? When a person is encouraged to get in touch with and express his deepest feelings in the secure knowledge that he will not be rejected, criticized, nor expected to be different, some kind of rearrangement or sorting out process often occurs within the mind, which brings with it a sense of peace, a sense that the depths of the well of truth have been reached. This is compassionate curiosity, the capacity to empathically investigate without judgment. But in order to look squarely at one's supposed brokenness, we need to at first accept our reliance on those mechanisms we use to avoid it. We need to momentarily respect our vulnerability and powerlessness in the face of this thing that has controlled us for so long. Each time we try to escape these addictions, we do so under the guise that we have control, or that we will have control at some point, that things will eventually work out. This is the addiction talking. Here, in this moment of acceptance, we need to be honest with ourselves. How does one break the cycle of fear and resentment? In Buddhism, all comes from the mind. In Buddhist practice, however, one must not try to change the mind, but instead simply observe it. We become the object of our philosophizing, and in a sense we act as detectives to ourselves. As Deleuze writes, a book of philosophy should be, in part, a very particular species of detective novel, in part a kind of science fiction. By detective novel, we mean that concepts, with their zones of presence, should intervene to resolve local situations. They themselves change along with the problems. By simply examining the mystery of ourselves, of what makes us tick, what makes us tear up, what makes us joyful, we become detectives entrenched in a case. As the story changes, we change with it. And like a good philosopher, we are never fully satisfied with an answer. Now, how does one practically engage in this process? Addictions, or more plainly put, devices of escape, could be seen as a challenge to our curiosity. Or they could be seen as an entry point. These are our more automatic thoughts and behaviors that were formed in an attempt to avoid our internal environment. That means if we pay attention to when and why they are triggered, we will also find ourselves better able to investigate what is at the root and hopefully find ourselves with some greater agency over our lives. As Carl Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. One program, a 5-step journaling technique devised by Dr. Jeffrey Schwartz and amended by Dr. Mate, that is typically used to treat OCD, can be used as a good map for engaging in compassionate curiosity. Firstly, you simply label and define the urge or thought for what it is. We may say to ourselves, I need to scroll on my phone right now. Here you note that your intense feelings of checking your phone manifest as an imperative need. Is it really something you need to do? Next, you note where this supposed need is coming from, your brain. This is where you separate yourself from your thoughts and feelings. You are a patient and compassionate observer, asking yourself why such an urge is so powerful. Are you tired, hungry, lonely? Perhaps you are not responsible for the circumstances that made you develop this addiction, but at least now you have the choice to be responsible. In this step, you use replacement activity. Instead of grabbing your phone, perhaps you grab a book or walk outside, or simply pay attention to your breath. Now this is the dirty work, where you fight what is called salience attribution, the ability for our brains to misattribute a great deal of value to an unnecessary and even damaging activity. You need to remind yourself that this addiction, this urge, is what is leaving you with a feeling of brokenness. It may have been useful at some point, but it has outworn its welcome. What has this addiction done for you? Without judging yourself, note the damage that this addiction has caused you. Remember, you are simply a detective assessing the full extent of the damage. This final step is the reclamation of your life. Life until now has created you. You've been acting according to ingrained mechanisms wired into your brain before you had a choice in the matter. It is time to recreate, to choose a different life. Here you ask yourself, what is the life that you really want? This invokes an inherent need to be creative and to express yourself, to write down your values and forge a path towards healing. Mindfully honoring our creativity helps us transcend the feeling of deficient emptiness that drives addiction. Now, this won't be immediate, but it will be worth it, to finally find that at the end of the day, you were never actually broken, that you were simply using the best tools you had at the time, and to nonetheless let them go and live the life you have always wanted. This video was sponsored by Blinkist. If you're anything like me, you're constantly curious and always looking for ways to learn and grow. That's why I'm excited to tell you about Blinkist, the ultimate tool for satisfying your curiosity. With Blinkist, you can access thousands of the world's best nonfiction books in the form of easy-to-digest 15-minute reads or audiobooks. No more struggling to find the time to sit down and read an entire book. Blinkist gives you the key insights and takeaways from top-rated titles in a fraction of the time. I've been especially enjoying Ryan Holiday's book, Stillness is the Key, that seamlessly merges Buddhist and Stoic philosophy to help in any tough situation you might encounter. Now there's also Blinkist Spaces, a feature that allows you to create a space with friends or family where you can recommend titles to each other. All members of a shared space can access all titles in the space, with or without a Blinkist Premium subscription. Get 25% off Blinkist Annual Premium and get a 7-day free trial by clicking my link in the description below or scanning the QR code.